Hello and welcome to the Malika Writes channel, and I'm Malika, and today we are going to be talking about the Queen's Gambit. So before we begin, I'm just going to pour myself some Earl Grey to match the dismal weather in the fair British Isles today. So okay, the Queen's Gambit. My first impression of the show was overall very good. I liked the show a lot. It was quite emotive. I think they do a good job of creating a very realistic character who is not overly sympathetic. She, especially when she's younger, she does come across quite demanding, a little bit rude, and just generally a sort of lonely character. But that all makes sense when you learn of her backstory. It wouldn't make sense if she was this happy-go-lucky, just generally angel, sweet to everyone sort of character, when her mother was abusive and mentally unstable. Her father left as a result of her mother, carting herself and our main character Beth all over the country to escape him for whatever reason. It didn't seem like he was abusive, but it seemed like she wanted to run away from him for some reason or other. And so our character is realistic based on their backstory. And the show, the camera work was really nice. One of my favourite bits was where they sort of pan from the officers talking about the car crash that leaves Beth an orphan of sorts. I think her father is still alive, but her mother is in a crash and Beth is sent to an orphanage. And then the camera pans to the car crash, then pans to Beth just standing there more or less unscathed. So the overall show is really good. Today I'll be focusing mostly on the first episode to avoid spoiling it and other things like that. So let's talk about character layering. I've already touched on her backstory and how that plays a part into making her a very realistic sort of character. But I also wanted to talk about the things that go into what I think her story arc will be. It's fairly obvious where the story is going. It's gearing up to let her be able to play chess without the use of drugs. I mean, you only have to look at the description to know that she's an addict. So me telling you that she's on drugs is not exactly a spoiler. But I think the way that they handle that drug abuse, and almost they make it very difficult for her to let go, because it becomes a very integral part of her ability to play chess. She doesn't learn to play chess in the traditional way of just a child she is exceptionally bright, let's not take that away from her, but she doesn't learn to play chess in the traditional way. She has hallucinations, and those hallucinations help her play chess. So the natural arc is to allow her to play chess without the use of drugs and without these hallucinations. Or they could, integrate the hallucinations into her so that they sort of become a part of her, but without the drugs. That's more or less the two options that you're left with, or she completely gets disqualified and is never able to play chess again. But that wouldn't really be a very uplifting story now, would it? In terms of layering, so we know how her backstory feeds into her person as a character, but in terms of layering, I feel very much that there is a rule when it comes to beginnings of stories. The whole story should essentially be contained in the opening chapter or the opening scene or the opening episode. So the first chapter, first scene, whatever you want to, the beginning. It goes like this. The entire oak tree, everything that will go on to become an oak tree is contained within the acorn. So I'm not expecting to see an oak tree in the first episode, but I am expecting to see an acorn containing all the elements and the themes and the beginnings of the messages that you want to pass across. I'm expecting to see that in the first episode or the first chapter or the beginning. So I think this does that very well. I was able to see where exactly they were taking this story based on the first episode alone. And I think that's a testament to good story writing, because the themes that we're going along with are introduced quite early. Of course, there are other things that come along a bit later, but the main themes, the structure of the story and the general direction of the story should be made visible, or the clues that will then go on to, make up the whole story should have been, the seeds should have been planted in the beginning, in the first chapter or and such. And I think that this did that very well. I wanted to also talk about the character of Jolene. We meet her very early, and the first time we are ever made aware of her, she's swearing black and blue in off screen. I think she's a very interesting character. She reminds me of a Ben Solo sort of character, because she's not exactly a morally upright person. She's more of a morally grey person, the rogue that joins the team and helps build the character. She is essentially the character that introduces our main character, Beth, to this tranquilizing or drug that Beth gets hooked on. Even though she does warn her not to get too used to the feeling, but she starts the issue. She starts the whole trouble with the drug problem. But she is a character who is she has a lot of complexity to her, and again, just from the first episode you can get that. She's not just a straight rogue. She's coming from a place of hurt. And I think Beth can sense that, which is why she really attaches herself to Jolene. And I think the series raises another big question, I think, or a big issue, because we've seen this in popular culture where people we admire don't necessarily have the best lives behind the scenes. On camera, they may seem to have it all, but behind the scenes, it's not always like that. And the introduction of the series, so the very beginning, we see Beth as a wreck. We see her climbing out of a bath, she's still clothed, and we hear the bottles all over the floor, and from the sound of it, there are a lot of bottles. So we meet a character that is really broken. Then when we see her in the light, where she's opened all the curtains and she's dressed, she looks really orderly, she looks respectable, and she is going to play chess. Now, the imagery that we're given once the lights come on is that this is a well put together, or at least well off and privileged young woman. But we will only see whatever comes after through the eyes of the very first scene, the very first image that we're given, and how she's introduced to us. She was introduced to us as a wreck, to be honest. So Beth is one of those characters that is very multi-layered, and I really liked that about the series, because it didn't make her an angel for the sake of sympathy. It made her very real, and I think that it's something that makes the series very relatable, because we're all trying to live lives that show us at our best. But there is another side, and I think that is the complexity of being a human being. It's never just one image. There are multiple layers to it, and I think when we're writing characters, we always have to bear that in mind, that your character is not just the face. Your character can have a good facade, but behind that there's a lot going on. You would, just looking at her, you would never think she was an addict, but she is, and a terrible one at that, as you will see if you watch the series. I would really recommend it. I enjoyed it thoroughly. The fashion was amazing. I really did like it. I liked her hair as well. She always looked really nice, which was really strange compared to the fact that she was piss drunk a few of the times. So her representation to the world was very different to who she was inside, and we saw this really hurting character, which was, I think, a really good thing, especially in our society today, to have a character that is not just, that is not just a mess in everything, which is really realistic. Some of the people who we admire, they don't have perfect lives behind the scenes, and I think that is a very potent message for today. But regardless of what it says about today, it was a very good series, and I think the character development was really good, and I would really recommend watching it. Really, really recommend watching it. So that's more or less the end of this video. I don't want to ramble on too much. So yes, join us next week on Tuesday, where we'll be talking about more light-hearted topics and veering away from drug addicts. I hope you have an excellent week. And this has been the Malika Writes channel. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and also share this if you think it's worth sharing. Thank you very much, and see you next time.